Well, welcome everyone to the Aspen Forum for Forming a Unitive Consciousness. Our purpose of this event is to raise a banner that says that the only way we can solve our problems on a local, national and international level is to work together, to unite and to recognize that we have to move from thinking as individuals, as separate groups, as a favored country, to a global community that seeks the good for all species, humanity, and the planet. To help us think through and feel through this, we have some of our foremost spiritual teachers: Marianne Williamson, Tim Shriver, Cynthia Bourgeot, Matthew Fox, Andrew Harvey, Cyprian Consiglio, Mindahi Bastido, Susan Aposhen, Sherri Mitchell, and Heather Vesey. My name is Nicholas Vesey, and I'm the minister here at the Aspen Chapel who've sponsored this event. I'd also like to thank our other sponsors: the Cherumians family, the Hicks-Kinney family, Gina Murdoch, Don Davidson, Sandy Simpson, the Open Mind Project, and all of you who made a donation to make this happen. We're really most grateful. Why are we doing this? Well, our first project was a webinar on how we respond to the time that we're living through, which we held in February. Over 14,000 people have seen that webinar, and we wanted to follow it up with an intention for something positive. Consciousness has been evolving since the beginning of time, and that's also true for human consciousness. Our awareness of how to behave within social contexts has necessitated us becoming more conscious of what works within those contexts: the rule of law, the sacredness of life, and the common understanding of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you are all part of the evolution of our collective consciousness. In recent times, we've seen an increase in racial consciousness, gender consciousness, and planetary consciousness. And with the growth of global communications, TV, the internet, and social media, we've also seen the arising of a global consciousness. And seeing that picture of the Earth from outer space, a greater understanding of humanity has developed as we've come to see the interconnectedness of how everything depends on everything else. We're not all separate, but we're all together as part of the organism that's known as planet Earth. And just as a tree needs air, earth, birds, bugs, and sunlight, so we share both the Earth's resources and the Earth's problems. And if we're to survive as a species, we're going to have to learn to work together. All this is pointing towards the reality of a unitive consciousness, an awareness that we're all together in this great endeavor that we call life. That deep down, there is an awareness of our connectedness, and this awareness is actually the beginning of the solution of many of the world's problems. We can see ourselves as being part of one whole, not separate, but different expressions of the same consciousness. The question is how we develop our awareness of this unitive consciousness and how we create the understanding that our future depends on our ability to work together. That's what we're here to discuss, to work out the why and the how of this. The event takes place in two parts. This is part one, and you can find the other part on the Aspen Chapel YouTube channel or on our website, aspenwisdom.org. So let's go to the event, which happened in Aspen, Colorado on June the 7th. And our first host is Sherri Mitchell, a Penobscot lawyer, author, teacher, and activist from Maine. And she's the author of Sacred Instructions, Indigenous Wisdom for Living Spirit-Based Change.
Willie Sabaul, Agwanude, good morning, welcome. Thank you for joining us for this important conversation that we're about to have today. I'm honored to be able to be here with you, and despite the time change and the difficulty of flying into Aspen, I woke up this morning feeling very grateful. One of the things that I am hoping to discuss with you, consider with you today, is the complexity of what we are trying to do. A lot of people think that there's a simplistic pathway to unitive consciousness. If people would just think like I do, then everything would be okay. But there is a lot of complexity, and it requires a great deal of us. So when I share some comments with you later, I'm going to invite you into consideration of some of the things that we may need to work on that might not be easy for us to address, that might not be easy for us to face or to consider. And I have faith in you, all of you in this room and all of you who are watching online, that you have the capacity to do hard things, to go deep, to engage yourself in a deeper contemplation of your own presence and essence within this unitive consciousness, and how to harmonize your individual note into the larger symphony of life. And if we hope to do that, then we have to let go of a lot of the trappings that have led to the separation that Nicholas spoke of this morning. And this is just the beginning. We can't cover everything in 2 very short days, but what we can do is we can plant seeds within each other, water them, nurture them, hold them aloft together, and breathe life into them. And so let's make that beginning together as we begin to plant those seeds, nourish those roots, and grow something that will sustain us into the future. Thank you so much. It's now my job to introduce Heather.
Thank you. So, if we all are part of the evolution of consciousness, the evolution of love, then the question really is, what am I and you and we bringing to bear through our lives during our short time on planet Earth? What are we contributing? What are our lives about? It's not that we're all impotent victims of some inevitable future, but rather that we are co-creators, filled with divine agency, empowered, as the poet Rainer Maria Rilke would say, to build God together, to envision, build, and beautify the world that we want to see. And so this weekend, I think, provides an amazing opportunity. It's an invitation not just to discuss and swap good ideas, but more than that, it's about each one of us really leaning into our own consciousness with humility, courage, and honesty, looking deeply within and drawing up whatever is in the depth of our particular hearts. And at the same time, listening to and affirming what we see coming up in others, so that together we can create and live into a new possibility, a new vision. This weekend, we're so fortunate to have an array of amazing speakers, all of whom have truly put the work in. So I, for one, am so eager to hear what they say and to see what it stirs up in me and in all of us. And this is what I want to say. Let's all be a tiny bit aware as we go through the weekend of how easy it is, especially in this culture, for us to give more power in a way to certain people over others. There's a propensity to value certain people's wisdom over other people's wisdom. And I think we need to move into a new paradigm where we really value everyone's wisdom and insight, where we are all mentors and mentees, teachers and students to and of each other. That's all. Let's be aware of our discriminating mind. Let's listen and engage generously to all our presenters, to ourselves, to each other, to the divine wisdom in all of us. Let's dig deep and see what wisdom bubbles up. This is all about then harnessing the divine, beautiful, generative, creative energy that's inside you and me and all of us. So my hope is that we will each go away from this weekend, first and foremost, more deeply connected and devoted to our own unique relationship with the divine, where everything originates and generates, more connected with our deepest selves, with each other and the world, that something in each one of us will become clarified, that together we will truly live into a new way of being and doing, and that in some way we might join together with those who've gone before us and those who will come after us to bring forward what some would call the kingdom of heaven. It's for us to individually and collectively rise to this challenge and invitation. Tomorrow I get to share with you a little bit about Etty Hillesum, a very ordinary person who in the midst of extreme, difficult circumstances grew into the fullness of her being as she took love all the way in her one life. So I hope her life will inspire us all to show up in whatever ways we can, in the specificity of our unique lives and circumstances. So let's fling our hearts wide open, engage our minds and bodies, and see what we can live into together. And speaking of hearts and bodies and minds, I now introduce to you Susan Aposhian. Susan is based these days in Boulder, Colorado. She's a Buddhist, psychotherapist, teacher, dancer, yogi, grandmother, and author of 3 books, perhaps most notably of all, Heart Open, Body Awake, The 4 Steps to Embodied Spirituality. And some of you will recognize her from last year. She came and did a day here last year with us on embodied meditation. I don't think I know anyone who is so in their heart and body as Susan, and it's a treat to learn from her. So, Susan, thanks.
Have to bring the microphone down. Thank you all, Nicholas and Sherri and Heather. I feel like they've said it all, right? Those are the ideas that we're here to embrace. How do we do it? How do we practice? As I was listening to the 3 of them, I felt that I was praying. I closed my eyes. Some of you might remember from last year, I stand equally on both feet, and also you can sit with your feet on the ground. It helps us feel what we're talking about. Yeah, or sit on the floor if that's comfortable, but don't sit too long. If it gets uncomfortable, get up. Listen to your bodies. So what we're here to do is to practice all of those beautiful ideas that were just spoken of by Sherri and Nicholas and Heather. Ultimately, if we're going to turn this thing around, we all need to be practicing more, harder, more deeply, more fully. Whatever you practice, practice being a better human, practice loving others more, practice helping the earth, practice loving yourself more, practice opening to the unitive consciousness. Feel it right now with me. Sit up, not in a militaristic way, just in a way that you can feel your breath all the way into the base of you, the bottom of you. If you're able to and you want to, put both feet on the ground. It's a way of saying, yes, I am here with both feet. Let go of your breath. And by that I mean let go of controlling your breath from your head. Breath is divinity coming and going through us, inspiration. Let it happen right now. Don't try to do your breath. Part your lips. Just let the breath come and go on its own. If you can't find it, hold your mouth open. Feel the prayerful attitude that comes when you align your body between heaven and earth. And that's what I'll be reminding you of all day, today, and tomorrow, is align yourself so that spirit can infuse whatever you do, so that some way, God knows how, we get through this. Our species survives the insanity it has created. Environmentally, socially, politically, we've created insanity. We're adolescents as a species, right? We're adolescents, and each of us has to grow up a lot if we're going to pull this off. So I'm going to remind us continuously, pray and practice, until maybe someday you can do it all day long, every day. And maybe if enough of us go toward that prayer, I'm going to cry. I want us, I don't care about me, but I want us as a species to survive and find a way to live harmoniously with the planet, with each other, with all the creatures. I want it very badly. When I was young, I believed we could do it. Now I have my doubts. So I want to introduce our next event, and it's song by Cyprian Consiglio. And he is I don't know how to say this word properly, Camaldolese monk. Did I say it right? He's a musician and an author and a teacher. He sings, he plays guitar, he composes, he writes. He's a recording artist and a producer. And most of his music and his teaching revolve around the universal call to contemplation and wisdom.
Good morning. I'm so sorry I can't be with you for this wonderful conference today, but thanks to Heather and Nicholas for inviting me to offer some music remotely. I'm going to start out with two songs here to help you open your own day. The first one's called Walk in Beauty, and it's based on the closing prayer of the Blessing Way ceremony from the Navajo tribe of the Native American tradition. If I understand it correctly from the study I've done, the Blessing Way is actually a very complex system of healing ceremonies that are actually designed to restore balance to the entire cosmos. They're not intended so much to cure illnesses, but to invoke blessings and to ward off misfortune, also used to bless homes. There's also some instances of this Blessing Way that involves just women, both to bless girls as they enter into puberty and for women who are about to give birth. In those ceremonies, men are not allowed to participate at all. To me, these two things go together, feminine wisdom and the wisdom of the earth. In many traditions, they often do. It's some of the things we really need to recover, for sure, in our own evolution of consciousness. Even though this practice is thought to have originated with the Navajo tribe of Native Americans, there are many cultures who observe some form of this ceremony, and a number of faiths have adopted something similar to it. The operative word here in the Navajo language that appears over and over again in the actual prayer is Hosho, which means natural order. So this is about actually reestablishing the natural order, something we desperately need to do in our day and age too. In the middle of the song, actually, I place another poem that was written by the late English poet Charles Causley that I happened on one day, and somehow these two poems seem to go together. Charles Causley spent most of his life in Cornwall and was quite fascinated with all the native traditions of that region, the folk songs, the hymns, and the ballads. And he had a line he said about poetry that I thought the same thing in regards to myself with music. He said, if I didn't write poetry, I think I'd explode. So bring a little bit of art and music into this day for you. Along with that, I'm going to sing another song that's called A New Heavens and a New Earth. It's based on this little image of scripture that gets mentioned 3 times in the Jewish and Christian scriptures. The first time in prophet Isaiah, when God says through Isaiah, I will create a new heaven and a new earth. And then the second letter of Peter, and Peter says, we await a new heaven, we await a new earth. And then right at the end of the Bible, in the book of Revelation, I have seen the new heaven, the writer of the Apocalypse says, I've seen a new earth. There's a teaching by the Anglican scripture scholar, Bishop N.T. Wright, that's really touched me deeply. He said this over and over again in many different ways. He says our culture, especially our Christian culture, is so fixated on dying and going to heaven. My body dies and my soul goes to heaven. And he says that's actually not the end of Christian life. The end of Christian life is a new heaven and a new earth, according to the scriptures. And the whole scripture is actually about heaven coming down to earth. Even there, when this phrase is mentioned, new heaven and new earth, right near the same passage, it says, the new Jerusalem coming down from heaven. So, he says about Jesus' resurrection, Jesus' resurrection is the beginning of God's new project, not to snatch people away from earth to heaven, but to colonize earth with the life of heaven. That's our job. And that, after all, he says, is what the Lord's Prayer is all about, on earth as it is in heaven. So, I added one little verse to the end of this, my own version of it. I say at the end, dare to dream a new heaven. In other words, let's evolve our consciousness and mature in our understanding of the divine. Maybe we have to break out some of our childhood, our mythical language, and find a new understanding of the divine. But then I say, but work to build a new earth. While we're doing this, let's keep rooted. I'm thinking of the wisdom of Thomas Berry, the passionate priest and geologian, he called himself, who said, we need to do as much inscendence, if not more inscendence than transcendence, going back to the earth, back to the genius embedded in our own DNA, and maybe be recreated. And it's actually our transcendence, moving away from the earth, that's done a lot of damage. And so, these 2 songs open your day, walk in beauty and a new heaven and a new earth.
Today I will walk and darkness will leave me. I will be as before. Over my body cool breezes blowing, nothing can hinder me. I walk in beauty, I walk in beauty, I walk in beauty. Beauty behind me, beauty before me, beauty, beauty below, beauty above and all around. My words will be beautiful. I walk in beauty, I walk in beauty, I walk in beauty. I am the song that sings, the bird, the leaf that grows the land. I am the tide that moves the moon, the stream that halts the sand. I am the cloud that drives the storm, and the earth that lights the sun. I am the clay that shapes the hand and the fire that strikes the stone. Wandering on a trail of beauty, lively, lively I walk. In old age I'm on a trail of beauty, living, living again. I walk in beauty, 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 beauty. I will create a new heaven, I will build a new earth. The former things are fading away, something new is coming to birth. Still the sound of your weeping, no more need for distress. You see the ox and the wolf, the lion and lamb graze together in peace. We await a new heaven, we await a new earth. The former things are fading away, something new is coming to birth. So then strive to be peaceful and give goodness its place. Salvation comes, so patiently wait and grow in wisdom and grace. For I have seen a new heaven, I have seen a new earth. The former things are fading away, something new is coming to birth. New heavens and a new earth, new heavens and a new earth. The former things are fading away, something new is coming to birth. To wipe away every tear, no more mourning today. No pain, no grief, no reason to cry, such things have passed away. And dare to dream a new heaven, but work to build a new earth. The former things are fading away, something new is coming to birth. New heavens and a new earth, new heavens and a new earth. The former things are fading away, something new is coming to birth. New heavens and a new earth, new heavens and a new earth. The former things are fading away, something new is coming to birth. New heavens and a new earth, new heavens and a new earth. The former things are fading away, something new is coming to birth. New heavens and a new earth.
Okay, now through the magic of technology, we're going to go to London, and live in London, we're going to be seeing Marianne Williamson. Marianne is really one of our foremost spiritual leaders. Hello, Marianne. Should we say hello to Marianne?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Nicholas was just talking about the things I say. I read an article once and somebody said, she's saying what everybody else is saying. She just says it when the lights are on and the microphone. And I think that's true. I think that we're all sort of downloading the same thoughts and feelings right now. I think that when we come together for events like this, it's not so much that one person is saying anything different than another person is saying. It's more like the kaleidoscopic and symphonic variety of voices. Cyprian was talking about the resurrection. The Course in Miracles says the resurrection is the return to our right mind. Susan was also talking about the insanity of this time. Gandhi said the problem with the world is that humanity is not in its right mind. We were taught when we were children about how evolution works. And we were taught that if a species gets to the point where its collective behavioral patterns are no longer well adapted for the survival of that species, then one of two things is going to happen. It's either going to go extinct or it is going to evolve. It's going to mutate. It's going to evolve. And I think Susan also said something that a lot of people have been thinking, which is not so sure. Not so sure we're going to make it. You know, I've thought for a long time, so many of us have had experiences, if not in our own lives and with people we've loved, around drugs and alcohol. It's become part of the cultural jargon that we understand that if somebody goes too far with an addiction to drugs, alcohol, that physical survival is not guaranteed. But we've always just assumed, well, humanity, somehow our survival would be guaranteed. And I think that people now are recognizing, not necessarily. In the Course in Miracles, it says that there is a line beyond which the Son of God cannot miscreate. So humanity itself is clearly at a crossroads now, for all the reasons, once again, that Susan said, the different ways we could do ourselves in, nuclear bombs, environmental disasters, biomedical insanity, whatever. So one of two things is going to happen. We are either going to evolve or we are going, or at least it is reasonable to consider the possibility that humanity will go extinct. Now, what would that evolution be? That evolution to the next state of our consciousness, once again, is what's been talked about here today. I call it Homo divinicus. When we were children and we would see pictures on a page about the evolution of humanity, we would, it'd start down with, apes on the ground, and then the final picture would be humanity standing upright. But I think actually that turned out to be the middle of the page, because the next stage is when our arms start going up, first in hallelujah, and then those arms evolve to our wings. Those wings mean the anti-gravitational power, which is within us, and that's what Cyprian was talking about. The idea that heaven and earth does become one in us. The way the Course in Miracles describes it, it talks about Jesus. It says that Jesus was not, and is not the only one who has achieved this, but he would certainly be an example of the mutation, as would Buddha and so forth. The Course in Miracles describes him saying he lived on the earth, but thought only the thoughts of heaven. And so in him, heaven and earth did become as one. And that's what it means. The Course in Miracles says heaven and earth shall become as one, means they will no longer exist as two separate states. That we will so deepen. Right now, we are on such a horizontal, everything's on the horizontal. But once again, you look at the symbols of both the Christian cross and the symbol of the Jewish Star of David, their intersection. They're about the intersection. The vertical and the horizontal, the pyramid pointing to the sky, the pyramid pointing to the earth. And that's why when a Jew or a Christian wears these symbols over our hearts, the idea, once again, the same kind of thing is reiterated with the yin and the yang symbol. One of the things about the yin and the yang is I love how the white has the black circle within it, and the black has the white circle within it too. That in the greatest light, as long as we are not fully evolved, until we are totally there, within the light, there is the potential for the darkness, and within the darkness, though, there is the potential for the light. Now, Susan was talking about how depressing it is these days, because the truth of the matter is there is a general feeling that we might have simply gone too far. And not only simply gone too far for all the reasons having to do with global disasters, but certainly as Americans. With the Declaration of Independence, the radicalism of the notion that all men are created equal, the Western liberal value of rule by law rather than rule by man, the idea that everyone should have a right to soar. The container for that, the primary container for that, which was with the founding of the United States, is clearly, we've allowed it to rot. And so there is in metaphysics and this of course causes us great grief and sadness as Americans, because what an extraordinary blessing and opportunity that we have somehow allowed to decline the way it has. You know, in metaphysics, most people who are in the hospital who don't make it through whatever disease or whatever, in metaphysics, it says that there's this silver filament. And when we go to sleep at night, the soul leaves the body, but it is connected to the body so that when it's time to wake up, the soul comes back in. Well, when people die, most people who die in hospital die in the middle of the night, because what happens is that the soul, the spirit leaves, and then the body isn't strong enough to let it back in. And that's really the question going on right now in the United States. Is the container, will the container withstand the assault? I think there's a chance it will, first of all, because I believe in miracles, but also because I believe, as I say in AA, every problem comes bearing its own solution. There's such an awakening going on now. I was talking to a friend of mine about a couple of months ago, about 3 months ago. She is a woman that I have never, she's never been snarky to me about it. She's very into left-wing politics, very snarky to me. No, I mean, not snarky to me, but clearly not into the spiritual stuff that Marianne's into. We were talking about how bad things are. And I said at one point, I said, well, I believe in miracles. And she said, well, we need one now, which I thought was interesting. The Course in Miracles says salvation begins when you consider the possibility there might be a better way. My point, however, is that yes, is there a possibility we'll be able to pull the rabbit out of the hat in terms of the United States? Yes, but there's something for us to remember, and that is that the idea, the metaphysical idea of the great work is such that it goes wherever it will be contained. So no person is indispensable and no nation is indispensable. And so if the great work, you know, I'm in London right now, as Nicholas said, I was speaking in Dublin as well as in London, talking about how the United States, as you think of it, as a basketball team, and a tallest player is benched for a while. And I hope it won't be for long, but in the meantime, you guys have to step up. And I think that that's what is happening on the planet right now. And that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, because people have been asleep too long. And one of the groups that's been asleep too long is the so-called higher consciousness community in the United States. You don't get to the resurrection and just skip focus on the crucifixion. The Course in Miracles says you have to look at it, but not dwell on it. If you look at it too much, then you begin to spiral down. If you don't look at it at all, you're not in transcendence, you're in denial. And so we're having to hold this space. I know for me, and I say this as a question. I don't say this as an answer, because I have not worked this out for myself. Okay, Marianne, dwell in total love, dwell in human consciousness of the divine, only every moment about love and forgiveness. And then where's your mind and your behavior supposed to be in relation to those that you feel are taking the hammer to some of the greatest, most blessed possibilities in our country and in our world? Right now, I think the focus needs to be on the fact that the universe works like a giant GPS. You take a wrong turn, humanity has clearly taken a wrong turn, America has taken a wrong turn, and the GPS immediately calibrates your journey. And that's where I think we are. And I think each and every one of us has within us, we're like immune cells. Every cell in the body is coded with a natural intelligence. You go to the pancreas, you go to the stomach, you go to the brain. Every once in a while, a cell loses touch with its natural intelligence, loses touch with its collaborative function with other cells, goes off to do its own thing. It's only about me. That is what has happened to the human race We have been infected with the malignant consciousness of total radical self-reference. It's all about me. But the body too recalibrates. That's what the immune system is. And right now, each and every one of us is being activated within. Susan was talking about we're crying. Yeah, I always say pray in the morning, kick ass in the afternoon. Yeah, we cry, but it's also time, especially for those of us, we must be leaders. You cry and then you get out there. And I think that's a really important issue right now. Keep the crying in a sacred space. Keep it in a sacred space with the people that you are close to, with your own therapist, your own closest friends and counselors. And then we got to go out there. And Gandhi was asked, who is the leader of the Indian independence movement? And his response was the small, still voice within. As soon as we sign up in our hearts, I'm available to you, God. I'm available. Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? Each and every one of us, part of the equality, the divine equality of Homo Divinicus is each and every one of us has that small, still voice within, which is basic to both Christianity and Judaism. So the issue is whether we are doing this in order to save American democracy, which we certainly hope, or whether we're doing it to be part of the larger cultural thing. You know, when Constantinople fell, because I don't think there's been any destructive phase this big since the fall of Constantinople, but you know what? When it fell, that seeded what would ultimately be the Italian Renaissance. So whether we're doing this to hopefully save this extraordinary dispensation of Western democracy, particularly America's part in it for those of us who are Americans, or whether it's just we're gathering the seeds and burying the jars so that those after us will be able to, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we sign up, I'm available. Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say and to whom? The Course in Miracles says ideas grow stronger when they are shared. We've got to stop talking to each other like, are you okay? Are you okay? And instead say to those that we love, what great thing are you doing today? What great idea do you have? And how can I help? And that to me is where Nicholas and Heather come in. That was their guidance to do this. So what's our response? Great, how can I help? And that's where we are. Cry if you have to a little bit. Make sure you pray in the morning, and then in the afternoon, kick ass. I don't know what the miracle is going to look like. I don't know where and how and what form the power of God is going to express itself, but the Course in Miracles says the will of God has never not been done. We're in that 3 days between the crucifixion and the resurrection. We're in that 40 years between the slavery of in Egypt and the delivery of the Israelites into the promised land. We got to all find the inner Moses within ourselves, the inner Christ within ourselves, the inner Buddha within ourselves, and whether we will see all of the explosion of light and possibility in our lifetime is not ultimately even what matters. What matters is that even if we don't, we'll die knowing we did what we could before we left. God bless you, everybody. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, Heather. And thank you for asking me to be part of this conversation today. It's truly an honor. Thank you.
Someone I know who has their own fantastic GPS in terms of you know, when I read her book, it made such a difference to me, is Sherri Mitchell. So again, to invite Sherri Mitchell to come and speak to us now. Sherri.
So I've done something that I never do. I've very rarely do. I can't say never. I arrived yesterday after a very difficult day of travel, and woke up at about 4:14 a.m. this morning and felt a bit out of sorts and thought about, you know, what do I want to share? What is it that I can bring forward today that's going to be a meaningful part of this discussion? And the flood of things that came forward led me to believe that there was no possible way for me to remember all of those things. So I sat down and I wrote out a flood of things that I wanted to bring forward today so that I was sure to do justice to what was rising up this morning. And before we start, one of the things that I would like us all to do is to think about the fact that we are part of this one thread of life that is experiencing itself in multiple forms and moving through time. And one of the agents that carries us together through that time is water. And scientists have recently caught up with something that indigenous people have been saying for a very long time, which is water is living, that it carries memory, it carries wisdom. And as an indigenous woman, I just love it when scientists discover something that we have known for a long time. And so now that we know this, that water carries memory, and that it is one of the key animating forces of life, because water's not just what animates our bodies. It carries the electrical circuitry through our bodies, but it also fills in the layer between our physical bodies and our spiritual bodies, between our spiritual bodies and our larger soul. Water is what transmits energy through the universe that allows twin photons to communicate regardless of how far apart they are instantaneously. And so if we want to do what Heather has invited us to do, which is to learn from one another, think about the power of water in shaping rock, wearing away stone. What are the things that we have within us that are set in stone? What are the beliefs that we're carrying that are set in stone that need to be allowed to dissolve in order for us to flow into a new way of being in relationship with one another? So let us take some water. Do you have water? If you don't have water, then just put your hands on your body, because you are largely made of water, and connect with the water that you have within you. So why don't you take the water, take a moment, thank the water for its life-giving essence, for its wisdom, and for its capacity to create pathways through what seem like insurmountable obstacles. And let's take that inside of us and acknowledge its ability to help shape us as we move forward on this path together toward a unitive consciousness. In our language, water is nibi. So I say, nibi, kachiwaliwan, kamachkazalmo. And I thank the water, kachita nida hamubuna, to respect the water, to bow down to its wisdom, and to acknowledge the gift that it offers us from day to day. And so, a lot of people in this room are fond of Jesus. So just think about the fact that we have a finite amount of water on this planet, and the water that is flowing into our bodies today has flowed through the bodies of all of our greatest wisdom teachers and carries the wisdom of them. So thank you for indulging me for those couple of minutes. Okay, I'm not sure if this computer being up here is going to interfere with any of the multimedia stuff that's going on. If it does, I apologize in advance. Kwe Pasidawin, Andeliwisi, Wanahamu Gwasat, Najio Banawabskewi, Ndilna Bama Gawasus, Nil Banawabskewi, Nagakakagus, Niltibayik, Nalita Hazio, and Diane. My name in my language, Wanahamu Gwasat. I am from the Penobscot Nation. My family is Bear Clan from the Penobscot Nation and Crow Clan from the Passamaquoddy tribe at Zibayik. And I'm very happy to be here with you today. When I introduce myself in my language, I'm placing myself in a relational context, first with the land, then with a distinct people, and finally with a family that is made up of two clan systems. As I orient myself with the land and the beings who have inhabited that land, human and non-human alike, I'm also integrating myself into deep time, allowing it to circle around me and carry the wisdom of those who have come before me and all those who will follow. Establishing this connection grounds me and keeps me rooted in place, allowing me to observe the world that is moving around me and helping me to find my place within it. All societies are defined by certain organizing principles. For much of the Western world, those organizing principles have been based on ideologies of separation and superiority. These ideologies have been written into the dogma and laws of governments and religious institutions for millennia, catalyzing the most violent conflicts that this world has ever seen. The core organizing principle that shaped my development is held in the phrase Basilda in Dilnabamuk, which acknowledges that my life, such as it is an offering to all of my relations, given without the contradiction of value. It is a recognition of the correlative impact that the world around me experiences with every thought, breath, and action that I give rise to. This philosophy creates a deep awareness within me of our interrelatedness and interdependence with all other living beings in the living world. And it recognizes that the universe that we are inhabiting is one that is built upon principles of balance. It is from this awareness that I begin to explore the topic of this conversation, forming a unitive consciousness. For centuries, the indigenous peoples of this land were ridiculed, persecuted, and murdered for expressing their awareness of a unitive reality and attempting to live in alignment with their sacred way of life. We were called savages, simple-minded, backwards. Our ways of knowing were stereotyped, demeaned, and then commodified. Yet here we are today, 600 years post-contact, not only continuing to hold these beliefs, but also helping to guide the conversation on the concept of unitive consciousness that has finally penetrated Western ideologies. Today, you are going to hear from various speakers on the formation of a unitive consciousness. I think that most of us have shared some understanding and that we all have similar things that we could share with you today. For my part, I would like to offer a bit of guidance and some words of caution as we continue to bring this awareness into the mainstream consciousness. My first bit of advice is to enter upon this path humbly, taking great care not to align this movement with existing dogmatic frameworks that create false hierarchies or promote ideologies of superiority. Entering into a unitive consciousness does not make you better than anybody else. It does not make you smarter than anybody else. It does not make you morally superior to anyone else. Care must also be taken not to impose singular ideological language into the narrative that is being developed. One of the most divisive aspects of the colonial patriarchy has been its need for homogenization and the reduction of people, places, and beliefs into monothematic limitations. I think that it's important to recognize that colonization is not our goal. Colonization is a separation of the people from the land. It is a separation of our relationship from the very sources of life. What we need to do is to be rematriating our hearts with Mother Earth, re-embodying our sense of oneness with all life. And that is not something that happens through colonization. I love you, Cyprian, no offense, but we disagree and we can still love each other. We're modeling this movement towards unitive consciousness by being able to do that. I think it would be a costly mistake for us to move toward unification of our consciousness with the assumption that oneness and sameness are equal. They are not. Any move towards sameness would unavoidably necessitate the establishment of confined parameters that would stifle the growth toward unity. Oneness has no need for sameness. It is built upon acceptance, inclusion, and appreciation for the value of difference. We have come to recognize that the living world thrives when our ecosystems and biodiversity are allowed to flourish intact. But we have yet to fully realize that the same is true for our societies. We too often cling to our attachment of the idea that our way is the right way. If people just saw things the way that we did, everything would be okay. My people, Banawabskewi and Baskiramakadi, are people of the circle. We value the gift of multiple perspectives and recognize that we are stronger when we think and feel together through conflict and toward consensus, which is not agreement, but acceptable alignment with some shared truth. We know that when diverse viewpoints are valued and shared, the entire community becomes wiser, more tolerant, and adaptable. This fluidity keeps the society supple and reduces instances of break and rupture. Sameness is fragile and susceptible to exclusion. Oneness flows without rigid structure or dividing lines. Within oneness, there is space for a multiplicity of ideologies that can cohere around common goals. I think it's likely true that many of us have believed that those common goals would rise out of a shared morality. But rather than coming closer together in this area, we appear to be moving further apart. This division is something that I, and I imagine many of you, have been giving a great deal of thought in recent years. I have some theories about this that I hope that we can consider together. The theory on moral foundations, which was developed by Jonathan Haidt and Jesse Graham, states that emotion is the primary catalyst for morality. More specifically, they identify the feeling of disgust. Psychological philosopher Mark Matusik, in his book Ethical Wisdom, references this theory when he states that it is emotions, not reason, that form the bedrock of ethical life. Without them, the most rational human being cannot be empathic or morally sound. Though I agree that emotions are essential to morality, I don't agree that disgust continues to play the same role in catalyzing moral behavior as it once did, at least not a shared or staid morality. If we are to adhere to the theory that disgust is the primary catalyzing emotion for a shared morality, then we must have some agreement on the baseline behaviors that we find repulsive. A quick look at the current reality informs us that there are vast differences in what people find reprehensible. For instance, some find cruelty to be immoral, while others appear to be delighting in it. We have a shifting moral baseline where the things that once disgusted most members of the society today barely raise an eyebrow. In addition to a shifting moral baseline, we also have a shifting moral anchor. We have shifted from disgust to contempt. Though closely positioned on the emotional scale, there are vast differences between disgust and contempt. Disgust is an aversion to an object, something that offends our senses. It can be something physically offensive or even an idea, action, or behavior. Disgust makes us feel bad. It's cringy and creates a desire within us for change. It moves us to actively remove or to change what we find disgusting. Maybe it's a dirty diaper, or perhaps it's the reality of people living in abject poverty or being treated with malice for reasons they cannot control, such as race. Contempt, on the other hand, is a feeling of dislike toward another person, combined with a feeling of superiority. Unlike disgust, contempt doesn't always make us feel bad. You know that that's just true, right? In fact, in many instances, the sense of moral superiority that it creates provides us with a righteous sense of empowerment and a stubborn unwillingness to change. Contempt is also a driver of anger, which can be equally motivating, but often results in harmful rather than corrective behavior. This shift toward contempt is seductive. It allows us to remain convinced that we are good and that others are bad. It insulates us from any sense of responsibility to engage or correct. It frees us from the accountability that we carry as co-creators of this reality. The shift from disgust to contempt also prevents us from contemplating the complexity that exists in this pathway toward unity, and from acknowledging that it requires something of us, something tangible and active. It requires healing, realignment, and conscious co-creation. Though healing is currently a multi-billion-dollar industry, I think we can agree that it is largely missing the mark. Everywhere we look, we see ads for trauma healing and embodiment training. Yet most people still feel maladjusted in some way. If we're collectively spending so much time and money on healing, why don't we feel better? We don't feel better because we are working to become adjusted to an ailing world. We aren't truly healing, we're simply learning how to live adaptively within the decay. This truth is triggering a deep sense of dis-ease in the core of our being, individually and collectively, because deep down we know that this adjustment is a threat to our physical lives and our spiritual beings, and that it is separating us from the source of life and dividing us from the embodied humanity that is essential to the formation of a unitive consciousness. So what must we do? Of course, we don't have time to meaningfully address this question today, and I don't want to insult your intelligence by having you believe that I assume that what I'm about to say is even a fraction of where we need to go. But we can begin to think about the direction that we must move. So, one, true healing. It requires truth-telling and difficult readjustments. Here's one that I think is a challenge for us. We have to first decommodify ourselves. We have to reevaluate our place within the larger scheme of creation. We have become so adept at making ourselves saleable, fractionating ourselves, sectioning ourselves off to sell to different people, that we no longer know the true value of our fully embodied being. Even when we're single, we say we're on the market, commodifying the most precious relationships that we have. A lot of people have at the core of their search for spiritual truth a desire to become salesmen of that truth. They go and they listen to somebody and they learn just enough to regurgitate it so that they can then sell themselves as an expert. We have commodified ourselves out of our ability to grow meaningfully and deeply. My dear friend Catherine often says that if we can't feel things deeply, if we can't move into the deepest essence of them, we will continue to make shallow action. We cannot afford to allow this time to be one of shallow action, which means that we have to move beyond the shallowness of this society that is obsessed with youth and look for deeper wisdom. So that's the first step. And we also have to be willing to let go of our comfort so that we can regain our balance in our bodies and in our relationship with the rest of the living world. What we call Wulikamawu and Kajeyi, the process of achieving inner and outer balance. It's a tandem healing of our internal balance and our external maladjustment to the world around us. Cyprian mentioned this Navajo word, hojon, which actually means restoring balance. They recognize that when anyone is sick, they're out of balance, and that in order for them to get well, there has to be a renewal of the balance. We also have to have a realignment with the sacred order of life, eliminating our species-wide narcissism and entering into what we call skijinawe bamausawagin. That's a sacred way of being in relationship with the rest of life that recognizes that we are not superior to all other living beings, that we are just creatures in the natural world. We have to taking active and aware responsibility for our role as conscious co-creators of the reality that we are currently inhabiting. I wrote in Sacred Instructions that we're like toddlers. Susan gives us the benefit of being adolescents. I don't quite share that optimism. We've been given a lot of toys that we've been allowed to play with. And we've moved from one thing to the other, dragging out all of the things. And then at the end of the day, somebody says, okay, it's time to clean up this mess. And we look around and we're crying because there's a huge mess that needs to be cleaned up. And we're like, who made this big mess? It wasn't me. I hear my grandchildren saying the same thing. You know, ukami, which is our word for grandmother. Ukami, it wasn't me, it was my sister who made this big mess. We don't want to take responsibility for our role in co-creating this. Just because we've not been consciously co-creating does not mean that we have not been contributing to the reality that's unfolding around us. We, again, diminish ourselves and lose our own agency when we deny that. So we can no longer afford to be spiritual children. We have to grow up. We can't place the salvation of this world into disembodied others and false gods, including the government and religious systems that have taken us away from our connections to one another and to the divine. We have to be willing to take responsibility for the things that need to be changed. We have to be willing to enter into sacred relationship with the core essence of our being, which the society that we have developed has beaten down within us. You know, there's a lot of talk about patriarchy, and I'm probably over time, so this is the last thing that I'm going to say. There's been a lot of talk about patriarchy and about the resurrection of the sacred feminine. And there's been this movement amongst women to displace men from within the society. And this displacement of men wholesale in what are called progressive communities has resulted in a huge backlash and movement of young men to the far right because they've been told that there's no place for them within our society. If we truly want to grow, we truly want to change, we truly want to become more inclusive and move toward a unitive consciousness, we have to look at the ways that our own self-righteousness has led us to the place that we're in today. We have to have a healthy dose of humility and recognize that we are all fallible, that what we're not seeking is a replacement of the patriarchy with a matriarchy that is going to displace men the same way that women have been displaced in the past age. What we're looking for now is the emergence of the sacred feminine, the sacred masculine, and the formative and creative space in between. That space of binary possibility, the space where creation happens. We call that the Medeolin. It's related to a word where it's the space between the wood and the skin on a drum. It's where sound comes into being, vibration and frequency that gives form to matter. We have to be willing to work within the context of that divine order to create the multiplicity of possibilities that are going to bring forward the change that we need to happen. Nobody has the answers today. But what we do know is that together we are smarter, together we are stronger, And the ferocity that we need right now is a ferocity of love, not another act of conquest. And so challenge yourselves. Is your evolution an evolution of conquest that seeks to tear something else down? Or is it an evolution of love that gives spark to a new creation? Thank you so much.
Back in February of 2003, there was a reading of poetry at the gates of the White House led by the poet Sam Hamill, as well as over 160 other public readings in various countries in almost all the 50 states. This was in opposition to the Bush administration's plunge into war in Iraq, which finally did occur actually in March 19th of 2003. During that time, 9,000 poets submitted poems and statements to a website called Poets Against the War. And then a book was published that includes the best of those poems submitted to the website, including such well-known names as Adrienne Rich, W.S. Merwin, Robert Bly, Jane Hirschfield. And there was one poem in that book that for some reason just stuck out at me. It's called We Are Waiting for Peace to Break Out by Carlos Reyes. I carried it around for years and years before I finally did something with it. And this is what came out of it. We are waiting for peace to break out.
We are waiting for peace to break out. We are waiting for flowers to bloom. We are waiting for the moon to come from behind the black clouds of war. We are waiting for light. We are waiting. And as we wait, we hold out our hands in love and friendship. White hands extended in friendship to black hands and brown and green hands of the earth. We are waiting. And while we wait, we applaud all those who have gone before us preaching peace. All the Mahatma Gandhis, the Martin Luther Kings, the Dorothy Days, the Daniel Bergens. We are waiting for peace to break out. We are waiting for flowers to bloom. We are waiting for the moon to come from behind the black clouds of war. We are waiting for light. We are waiting. And as we wait, we dance. We dance with the cold east wind, with the creaking, singing branches of giant firs. We dance with the devils of dust and the angels of clouds. We are waiting. And as we wait, we are learning the language of burning roses and the sunflowers slowly turning toward the sun. We are waiting for peace to break out. We are waiting for flowers to bloom. We are waiting for the moon to come from behind the black clouds of war. We are waiting for light. We are waiting. And as we wait, we are learning to listen to cries for mercy and cries for help, though we may not know the language. We are learning to listen for the arrival of doves. We are waiting. And while we wait, we are smiling at you, at all of you, at the you and the me in the mirror. We are waiting for peace to break out. We are waiting for buds to pop, though it's deep winter. We are waiting for flowers to bloom. We wait for peace as patiently as the drop of water, the lips of the mouth of the fountain. We are waiting for the moon to come from behind the black clouds of war. We wait knowing the water of peace is cool and sweet, sure that the crystal drop will fall in the earth in spite of our actions waiting for light. We are waiting. And as we wait,
we're listening to these amazing teachers, and we're now going to hear from Matthew Fox. I mean, for me, Matthew Fox has been formative in terms of my history in this area. When I first read Original Blessing, it totally transformed my idea of spirituality. He's one of our great spiritual leaders. He's the founder of the Center for Christian Spirituality. He's written 44 books and been translated into 68 languages and sold millions of copies. He's one of the prophets of our age. So we're now going to hear from Matthew Fox.
Hello, it's good to be with you at this conference. And I think the theme of it is extremely important. It has to do with our very survival as a species. And indeed, it impacts on millions of other species, because one of our struggles today, obviously, is global warming and the direction that the Earth is going, which is not encouraging, as we know. The melting of the glaciers of Greenland, Antarctica, and North Pole, and the rising of seas, and the increase of hurricanes, and wildfires, and floods, and droughts, and all the rest. Signs of our time. The question is, how we create a unitive consciousness in these circumstances, given the signs of our time. And of course, the demise and threats toward democracy are part of the signs of our times. I like to turn to the mystics myself, because they're champions of unity. Julian Norwich in the 14th century, first woman to write a book in English, uses the word wanting, O-N-E-I-N-G, wanting, for our experience of the divine, that we become one with the divine, and the divine with us. She says, between humans and the divine, there is no between, which is a catchy bumper sticker. And of course, John of the Cross, 16th century reformer and mystic, talks about the union with the beloved, the union with the beloved. His favorite name for the divine is the beloved. And that very much echoes part of his ancestry, which is Moorish and Muslim, therefore. And many of the Muslim saints and mystics, like Rumi, also talk about God as the beloved. And then in our own time, we have Martin Luther King Jr. talking about the beloved community. And I think that is very much the question at hand here. How do we create a community that is really community, that loves, and where the community itself becomes a beloved project? The word community, after all, comes from two Latin words, communio, to work together, to share a common task together. That certainly is what democracy is supposed to be about. And it certainly is what saving the planet is about. I mean, what was it, 50, 60 years ago, we were all thrilled when first human being landed on the moon, happened to be an American. And where we received not only from cosmonauts and astronauts, both the American explorers and the Russian explorers, pictures of the Earth as a single entity. And that, of course, has permeated our consciousness insofar as you've all seen pictures like this. And that was an image of the unity that we share. This planet is one planet. It's all interdependent. And we're not living that out yet, any more than we're living out a full democracy. American democracy, of course, started out with a good line, all men are created equal, but in fact it was excluding black men, and women were not in that sentence at all. So it took a civil war to solve the first problem, that of slavery, and it took 80 years of protest to give women the vote in 1920. So it's one thing to have these ideals, it's another thing to fill them out. And then, of course, there was the Great Depression, and it seemed like capitalism was sinking entirely. But FDR rose and came up with imagination, political imagination. So there's nothing to fear but fear itself, and set out opportunities for the unemployed, of which there were so many millions at that time. And since then, we've developed Medicaid and Medicare. We've had to have a huge civil rights movement, but many lost their lives and millions went to jail, including teenagers, to fight for their rights. All this is about unity consciousness. It is about living up to our so-called ideals. Now we're living at a time where all these accomplishments are in jeopardy. Instead of there being an urge to develop fuller unity at this moment, there's an urge to divest us of these accomplishments. I think the number one reason behind this destructive movement was the decision of the Supreme Court to allow untold amounts of dark money into our politics, so that we literally have the situation now where we are facing a government not of the people, by the people, and for the people that Abraham Lincoln promised near the end of the Civil War, but a government of the billionaires, by the billionaires, and for the billionaires, which truly would be the end of democracy as we know it in this country. So we cannot talk about unity without talking about its opposite. That would be like talking about peace without talking about justice. It's just sentimental fluff. We have to be realistic. So what do the mystics say about all this? What do they say about this struggle? Well, first of all, there is an inner struggle. There's an inner work that has to happen. Meister Eckhart says we sink eternally from letting go to letting go into the one. It's powerful language, and it's very insightful. We sink eternally from letting go to letting go into the one. So learning to let go, all of us have to participate in that letting go. The letting go of slavery, the letting go of racism that was so much a part of slavery, the letting go of laws that serve the few and not the many. But all of us undergo these experiences of letting go. And we realize that we sink into the one, that the unity is already here, because we're already human beings, all of us. And this is not just an American situation, but it is literally our species situation. Currently, our species, we've already counted about 15 other hominids who were our cousins, Neanderthal and Denizen and others. Well, they're all extinct. We're the last ones standing. So clearly you would think there'd be kind of a sense of emergency and a keen concern whether our species can even continue, given the extinction spasm going on with hundreds of millions of other species because of climate change. And we are facing the same reality. So you would think that part of unity is agreeing on common disaster that's facing us. I just read on the internet this week that scientists are very worried about what they call a super volcano. I didn't know there was such things. A volcano was a volcano. No, there are super volcanoes. And there's one near Naples that is really acting up now, and they are very afraid that this thing could blast off in our lifetimes. Last time this particular super volcano blasted off was 45,000 years ago, and it changed everything around the world. The amount of ash that it let loose, it changed the weather, it changed even the currents in the sea, agriculture, all of it was up for grabs. Well, this is the kind of crisis that can bring us together, isn't it? Isn't necessity the mother of invention? And isn't it time to invent a new kind of humanity that does not put all its money and its investment and its intelligence and technology into making war with each other? Why not try to make survival the bottom line? And that's what unity would mean. That's what a unity consciousness would mean. And that's what a beloved community would mean. That we're actually caring for one another. And it's not all altruism. Maestro Eckhart said, what happens to another, whether it be a joy or a sorrow, happens to me. That's the attitude. That's the consciousness. That's what compassion is. And today, compassion is actually a habit or law of the universe, according to scientists themselves. Interdependence, interconnectivity is so primal to how ecosystems work and how our planet works and how our galaxy works. There is an interdependence at every level of existence. Well, that's compassion. Compassion is the working out of our interdependence. It's our common joy and our common suffering. That's unity consciousness. Just that one sentence from Eckhart says it all. What happens to another, whether it be a joy or a sorrow, happens to me. And let's talk about religions. Religions all have, around the world, I don't know one religion that doesn't talk about curbing greed. Curbing greed. Because we are interdependent, because of some groups or some individuals think they're just here to gobble up all the resources, whether they're from Mother Earth directly or whether they're from Wall Street or wherever they are, if that's what your mentality is, that will destroy any community. There's no loved, beloved community where greed reigns. We all have to check some of our appetites at the door if we are going to be truly involved in the communal, in making a common task together, making democracy happen or making survival happen. Now, the mystics talk about the dark night of the soul. And I want to talk about that. I'm finishing a book now on John of the Cross's teachings of the dark night of the soul. And I bring in other mystics as well. Because I think it's a very important reality today. It's an archetype to name the suffering people are going through. You can call it despair. You can call it depression. You can call it acedia, which is the capital sin that is sometimes translated as sloth, but really it means a lack of energy to begin new things. A lack of energy to begin new things. Couch potatoitis, where we're addicted to sitting on the couch, watching others entertain us on the screen, rather than engaging ourselves in our own responsibilities as citizens, in our own nations, but also citizens in this planet of ours. And the whole question is, what do we leave for the generations 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 generations from today? What are we leaving them? That's the bottom line question. This is where elders have to stand up and be counted, and where the young and the elders have to work together. Now today, I talk about a triple dark night. We are in a triple dark night. There is a dark night of the soul, which I've just tried to describe. Dropping out, couch potatoitis, acedia, despair, I'll do my own thing. I'll go to another country and live out my life comfortably. That's the dark night of the soul. But there's the dark night of society. Rabbi Heschel talked about that. And he talked about it during the civil rights movement. The society itself falls into a place of nothingness and failure, where we don't feel we can do anything, where there's nothing but darkness. A lot of people are feeling that today. In the last presidential election in America, 90 million people chose not to vote. 90 million. That number far surpassed the winner and the loser in that last election, taken individually. The winner won 76 million, the loser lost 73 million, but those who chose not to vote were 90 million. That's a lot of acedia. That's a lot of political couch potatoitis. Then the third level of the dark night today is, of course, the dark night of Mother Earth. That we're all feeling this. Children know about it. It's getting in their dreams. It's disturbing them at all levels, whether grade school, high school, and college-age people. So if you let the facts in, if you're living in the real world, and not just in a world of entertainment or games or gadgets, you're living in the real world, this should be enough to wake all of us up in every country in the world to look for answers, to look for the beloved community and what we're doing to save one another. Can we agree? Is this unity to agree that Earth is a healthy Earth is a good thing? Can we agree on that? That healthy forests is a good thing? Healthy soil? Healthy oceans and rivers and lakes and waters? And pure drinking water, for example? Can we agree on that? Can we agree that assisting the old and assisting the youngest ones, the children, assisting children, the youngest ages, to get started on learning in good schools available to all, that this is a good thing? Can we agree that science is a good thing? Science can warn us about the tremendous dangers we're facing. On the one hand, it can also assist us in creating the technology to solve a lot of our problems, because our problems are solvable. We're that smart. But we're not wise. Wisdom includes the heart. Wisdom includes caring. Wisdom includes play and creativity and joy. Wisdom is feminine. So survival includes bringing in the feminine in all its dimensions to balance the masculine. And it also includes critiquing the masculine. So it's not about carrying on reptilian brain exercises of war and more war, and I win and you lose, and my team wins and you lose. We can play at those things. That's what sports is for. So we play it with the reptilian brain. Brilliant idea that humans come up with, to have sports, to play with reptilian brain. But to turn over our citizenship, our money, to war, to the reptilian brain, to war against Mother Earth, just rape, take everything we can and leave nothing behind for future generations. That's as unwise as you can get. That's pure folly. Folly is the opposite of wisdom. There's plenty of that going around. And I think we can all agree that greed is not a good thing. Greed is not a good thing. No religion in the world has ever countenanced greed. It's part of letting go and letting be. That we know there are limits. And if there aren't limits, society has to create limits to that greed temptation on the part of our human species. Thomas Aquinas, a great philosopher of the 13th century, says that greed tends to infinity and knows no limit. It tends to infinity. It never has enough. It never is satisfied. Years ago, I remember hearing an interview with Ford when Ford, the first generation after the founder of Ford, and he owned Ford at the time. And he was a multimillionaire. He was asked in an interview, "When do you have enough money?" And his answer was, "When you always have a little bit more." And that just really struck me. I was a young man at the time. I said, wow, even these multimillionaires are not happy. They never have enough. You always have a little bit more. Well, that won't work on a finite planet. As Gandhi said, there's enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. And we need economic systems that enforce and legal systems that enforce limits on our greed as individuals, as groups of people, as a species. Because our species has the capacity to devour this beauty, this diversity, this wonder, this magic, this sacredness of Mother Earth, if we don't put limits on things. So I'd like to close with a statement from a Sufi mystic, Hafiz, of the 13th century, late 13th century. He says, warriors tame the beasts in their past, so the night's hooves can no longer break the jeweled vision in the heart. The beasts in the past. The part of letting go is letting go of our inherited traumas, our inherited ancestral antagonisms to people of other religions or other countries or other races or ethnic groups. We have to tame those beasts of the past. And it takes the warrior in us, the Bible calls the prophet, that it takes strength to tame those beasts. And then he says, the intelligent and the brave, and that's all of us, the intelligent and the brave, open every closet in the future and evict all the mind's ghosts who have the bad habit of barfing everywhere. Barfing everywhere. In other words, fear. Fear is always about the future, isn't it? And hope too is about the future. But he says that we have to live more in the present. This is what all the mystics urge, to rediscover our sense of gratitude and wonder and radical amazement, as Rabbi Hesed said, that we're here at all after 13.8 billion years, that the earth is here at all, that our sun is here and the moon is here and the oceans are here, and it's working on behalf of our species and all these other amazing species we share this planet with. If this isn't unitive consciousness, I don't know what is. And if this can't unite us, I don't know what can. And as Hafiz ends, he says, only a peer, that means a saint, has the talent, the courage to slay the past giant and future anxieties. Well, I think he's talking about all of us. We're all called to a deeper level of being in the world, what traditionally has been called holiness or saintliness, in our own fashion. But that's what we've been talking about today. Aspiring to the best of humanity, to wisdom and not folly, that this is what authentic consciousness needs to do today, to challenge us to be our best selves. But Abraham Lincoln called the angels inside of us, unleashing them in preference to the demons. Thank you.
It is now my great honor to introduce my dear friend, Mindahi Bastido. Mindahi is director of the Original Nations Program of the Fountain, a caretaker of the philosophy and traditions of the Atomi Toltec peoples, and an Atomi Toltec ritual ceremony officer. He is a consultant with UNESCO and issues related to sacred sites and bioculture. He's traveled all over the world helping to protect sacred sites, to bring ceremony for the reactivation of sacred sites, and to bring the knowledge of that sacred wisdom to others. Mindahi has also served as director of the Original Caretakers Program at the Center for Earth Ethics, Union Theological Seminary in the city of New York, and general coordinator of the Atomi Toltec Regional Council in Mexico. So please help me to welcome my beloved friend, Mindahi Bastido.
Good morning. Draw Mindahi Bastida from Atomi Toltec peoples from Central Mexico. And it's an honor to be here with you in the Aspen Forum. And thank you so much for the beautiful introduction, dear Sherri. I'm going to begin with a chant for you. This chant, it also relates to the unity and the diversity, following prophecy of the eagle and condor, following prophecy of the new dawn and the rainbow children. Thank you very much for having me here today. I'd have loved to be in person, in matter, but I'm with you in thoughts and in spirit, and through these online facilities. First of all, I like to acknowledge the place where you are, the beautiful biocultural region around Aspen. And I like to send my regards, our regards, of respect to all entities, to all beings, to all species around the mountains, the rivers, the springs, and also the trees and the minerals. I like to send our regards from the Atlanchana and from the Mashikenya. The Atlanchana is the mother of the waters in the Lerma River, where I was born. And the Mashikenya is the feather serpent, also known as Quetzalcoatl. For many years, we were forbidden to carry out ceremonies in our places. For many years, we had to hide ourselves and to carry out our rituals to honor, to give thanks, and to really pay back and give offerings for Mother Earth and Father Sky. It was until 1996 in our region when we carried out the first public ceremony. At the end of the 70s, there was already an Otomi ceremonial center not far from where I was born in the Toluca Valley that we call Zambata. Zambata is the Valley of the Moon. Now it's known as Toluca Valley. And in the Otomi Ceremonial Center, we could carry out our ceremonies. But we had to ask for permission to carry out our ceremonies, even though it's our temple. And today, right now, we cannot just carry out ceremonies in our temple. We have to ask to the local government and to the federal government for a special permission to carry out special ceremonies. As you can see, in 1996, we called Fiesta por la Vida. Fiesta por la Vida is the celebration for life. We called the other 4 original nations and peoples who live in Mexico State. And Mexico State is the central state that surrounds Mexico City. You have heard about Teotihuacan, one of the biggest cities of the Otomi Toltec. North of Mexico City is in Mexico State. And those are our temples. The same happened. We cannot carry out our ceremonies over there. So this care of life, the care for the flourishing, the care for Mother Earth has been very difficult. Has been in resilience, in resistance for more than 500 years. And even the laws that protect the environment are not protecting the environment, are very permissive. Because in our territories, what is happening is the dispossession, is the ongoing taking over instead of taking care. We had to carry out so many efforts. We had to ask even for international support. So we could carry out the studies, the biological, the chemical studies, and the social studies about the wetlands where the Lerma River, the longest river in Mexico, is born. 1999, after some consecutive every year rituals by the wetlands, we were able, and we asked to the Mother of the Waters, the Atlanchana, to support us, because the waters were already gone. Because of these permissions, and to feed Mexico City, the growing city after the revolution, they were very thirsty, and they took over the springs, the big springs. So the Lerma River is dying, and the wetlands as well. So there were just very small water bodies. But I'm telling you this story because it is a story of everywhere, just with different scenarios. Why is so important? Because it's possible to recover collective dignity as human species. It is possible to slow down, to stop and reverse all the damage that we have created because of greed, because of lack of comprehension of life systems, lack of comprehension of the relationship that we have with the stars. and the cycles of time and space. And that's the very reason I'm telling you that until today, there is no international regime that protects biocultural heritage, biocultural memory, biocultural diversity. In our minds, in our ways of being, doing, acting, and feeling, we know that everything is interrelated. We cannot separate culture and biodiversity. We cannot separate what we have produced together with nature. And I'm talking about the most beautiful beings. In this case, the corn, the rice, the potatoes, and many other beings that are here with us. But this anthropocentric thought, even from the Western science or Western way of being, is killing us. We need to go back home. Because we need to, yes, of course, we can think from the anthropocentric thought, but we need to also to take into consideration of other species, because there is intelligence everywhere. There is intelligence everywhere you see. It's just lack of comprehension, lack of connection. Just imagine, in 1992, there was this beautiful gathering. Beautiful. I still close my eyes and I can see governments, officials, lawmakers, activists, NGOs, native leaders, artists coming together to Rio de Janeiro, what we call the most important gathering in the world in modern times, the Earth Summit. I was there as a young guy. But I was not just myself, I was representing the native communities and Latin American young people. I was astonished. I thought, there is a chance that we can create a beautiful world. And in that case, sustainable development came as a paradigm to really behave, but it was built on this construct of anthropocentric thought. And there is a beautiful thought about this principle of intergenerational equity, saying what kind of world we are delivering to the future generations. Of course, we have the right to think about the future generations as human species. But we have failed because in our thoughts, in our ancestral wisdom, we also think the other way around, or complementary, or even more powerful, saying what kind of world or what kind of children, what kind of generations we are delivering to this Mother Earth, to these other species. Because just think about the corn. It's the same kind of thought. The anthropocentric thoughts say, oh, the Mesoamericans, meaning the Mayans, the Otomi Toltec, the Olmec, were the ones who encountered the corn. But through dream time and through connections. It's the other way around too. The corn also gave us a way to be. So domestication is not just from humans. Actually, corn domesticated humans, and both ways. So I know that you have a lot of work that you have been doing, and you want to really push for a better world, but not just a better world for us, for humans, but for honoring this beautiful planet that is nurturing us, is giving us so much. So I want to give thanks, and I bring to this dialogue Father Sky and Mother Earth. And I want to give thanks to all of you for your efforts and for what you can do together. So we can go from me to the we in that responsibility, in that respect, in that orientation. So we can honor not just this Mother Earth, but Father Sky and the stars. We can come back and honor the law of nature, the law of the universe. And there is no climate justice without climate restoration. There is no social justice without taking into consideration other species, because we are not the only one, the social beings. All we are interconnected. So thank you so much. And I'm going to say again that I would have loved to see you in person sometime. If not, you are in my dreams, and I can see your words are potent, your actions, and we can do it together. Di kamadimo shingintini tsikwadan tsiku. Thank you, kamadiki, kamadiki, kamadiki. Hey, ay, ay, hey, hey.
This is one of my favorite songs to sing that I've actually been blessed enough to sing all over the world. It's a setting of the Metta Sutta of the Buddhist tradition, dedication of merit, the practice where at the end of a period of meditation, you would dedicate whatever merit you have gained out to somebody else. This original version was put together by a Chinese Buddhist monk friend of mine named Reverend Heng Shui. And he used a melody of Lorena McKenna to set it to music with her permission. We recorded it as well. I add on to it at the beginning of it something from the Hindu tradition, which is called the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, which has very much the same sentiments, that all people would be happy and free from disease. May they all realize what is good, may none be in misery. Again, in this theme of common word, this is a good thing for us to find between our traditions, words we can agree on. And this is one that I think anybody from any tradition could sing together. Here's Compassionate and Wise. Yam Jamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam Iva Bandhanat Mrityar Mukshiyam Amritat Om Sarvesham Svastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavatu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pushantu Makaschid Dukkha Bhagavave Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
minds is one and radiant with light. Share the fruits of peace, our hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see, our hearts and hands can find in giving unity. May the minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May goodness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. 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 Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
That concludes our first part. You can find the second part on the Aspen Chapel YouTube channel or on our website, aspenwisdom.org. Thank you very much for watching.